Film, like any other art form, has the capacity to stoke emotions in its audience, and the editing techniques presented in Battleship Potemkin brilliantly portray this idea. Early in the film, Eisenstein immediately establishes a power dynamic between the black-coated and white-coated sailors by showing a parallel cut of what is assumed to be a high-ranking sailor hitting their subordinate. Eisenstein could have used a detailed intercard to state outright that the conditions aboard the vessel were abusive. However, by showing the actor's reaction to being hit within the first 2 minutes of the film, he establishes an emotional connection between the audience and the characters. Once that emotional connection has been forged, Eisenstein continues to show this power dynamic through the use of close-ups. In the majority of the first act, close-ups on people are used to either draw attention to outrage or to highlight inequality in power. Although while the quality of acting and the effectiveness of close-ups work well to guide the audience's opinions, the most powerful tool in Eisenstein's belt is montage. For most of us in the United States, the idea of montage is heavily tied to the jump cut, a discontinuity editing technique that shows the passage of time. For example, in the 1998 animated film Mulan, a montage sequence shortens the training of a military unit into a 5-minute musical number. However, early Soviet films had a different idea of montage. In his third essay, The Cinematography Principle and the Ideogram, Sergei Eisenstein insisted on the idea of montage as a conflict of 2 factors creating a concept. This idea of film as a conflict is heavily influenced by the Marxist dialectic, or the phenomenon in which 2 ideas collide, leading to the development of a more complete idea. In his film, Eisenstein took the opportunity to show each form of montage to further emphasize the need of the working class to rebel against the ruling class. Prior to the rebellion on the ship, a graphic match between a priest swinging his cross and a high-ranking sailor fiddling with his sword is used to create an intellectual montage by drawing a connection between the church and the bourgeoisie, to emphasize the collapse of the bourgeoisie and to fit the organization of a rebellion. Eisenstein makes use of a rhythmic montage. As while the cuts are fast-paced, they continue to follow the overall context of the scene. To amplify the anger felt by a sailor realizing the unfairness of his situation, he cuts in a close-up of the actor's face contorting in anger before continuing the scene, hence using a tonal montage. But his most famous use of montage, and what I believe to be the scenes where Eisenstein shows his ideology the most, is the Odessa Steps. Before the massacre in Odessa, Eisenstein creates an environment full of joy and celebration, leading the audience to believe that the public aiding the battleship's crew in preparing for their rebellion would yield no immediate consequences, and kept this illusion for over 6 minutes. And just as the population of Odessa says their last goodbyes to the crew, the illusion breaks. The tone of the music changes drastically, with Eisenstein shifting the music to create another montage, alerting the audience of gunshots before any guns are actually shown. The crowd panics, and the cuts and shifts of point of view start increasing in pace, creating a feeling of chaos. Eisenstein starts shifting the camera angles on the Tsar's soldiers, all while avoiding their faces, painting the Tsar's men as faceless, merciless agents of the state. The camera enters first-person point of view for the most times in this scene, with many first-person shots on people either being shot or trampled. To further target the emotional response of the audience, Eisenstein temporarily slows down the cuts to focus on the death of a mother and the ambiguous fate of her child as their stroller rolls down the steps. With these scenes, Eisenstein has cemented the claim that the bourgeoisie are the enemies of the people and will stop at nothing to keep the means of production. Following the ideals of communism, I believe that Eisenstein's final point was that it is necessary to fight back against the bourgeoisie. In the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, Walter Benjamin warns that war proves that society has not matured enough to incorporate technology as its organ, and that specific regimes politicize art and aesthetics for their goals. These statements are in response to the rise of the film industry and how film as a media is often presented as a simultaneous collective experience that can easily be politicized.